by now, to attack any military location in defense should be suicidal. Nigerian politics is comedy. When you look at the kind of people we throw up as politicians, I won't say bring forward, we throw them off. You begin to understand why Nigerians are maltreated abroad. So if you want them to respect you, you don't go to them calling them to the table to come and talk. You don't do that. You bring these people out and say you are doing negotiations. They are not worthy.
You know, I usually start these conversations without going through the rituals of introductions. Sometimes you meet somebody you are very, very fond of, somebody you've come to respect over time, and you'll find out why. Captain Umar Babangida Aliyu, the one and only Captain Blade. Yeah, such a fine pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Because I feel honored to be in your presence, my brother.
Same here, thank you.
How's everything?
I'm good. I'm fine. Surviving by the day.
You know, you are a walking security encyclopedia. And I'm sitting in front of you, I don't even know where to start. But perhaps maybe I should just go a decade back.
Okay.
2015.
Indeed.
If memory serves, you had provided the Nigerian leadership with something of a roadmap. A security, is it a roadmap or what is it now, that was eventually set aside because I'm not aware that anybody did anything. A blueprint to curb terrorism, to curb insecurity in Nigeria. So it's been 10 years, time to take a look. Could you walk me through that? What happened to it? And what is the situation 10 years later?
Thank you. You see, 10 years ago, precisely 12 actually.
12?
When these challenges started, I was excited. I was excited because it was an opportunity to let out something within me that if it had happened 15 years earlier than the 10 years you've mentioned, somebody would have said I was a loony. Right through my days in school and I went to a military school. And from military school, I graduated to the Defense Academy and naturally found myself within the Directorate of Military Intelligence. So that James Bond kind of life was my dream life. It was my ideal, you know. And so I naturally gravitated towards it. And I liked to play out scenarios in my head, which would have been crankish before Boko Haram showed up. So I always did, but just kept it within and explored. I created a world in me and just lived there. So when the Boko Haram thing started, it was an opportunity, like, you know, finally. So I came out, and because I had always mooted such scenarios in my head, it was really not a problem. They didn't get me unawares. I had watched so many. In fact, I had gone back in time. I'd read about terrorists as far back as after the Balfour Declarations of 1958. I'd already read about people like Abu Nida, Carlos the Jackal. You mention any of those terrorists from the 50s to the 80s, and I'll just start singing and telling you things about them. I'd read about Moshe Dayan. I'd read about Golda Meir. I'd read about so many of them and how they tackled terrorists. I'd read about the Mossad, Aliyabet. I'd read about the Shin Bet. I'd read about the Israeli, the IRA, Israeli Resistance Army. You know, you just mentioned it. So I never knew it will get to Nigerians' turn one day. So when it started, I knew that first and foremost, there had to be a roadmap. And I spoke about it variously on different visual and audio media brands. And this roadmap was meant to actually say, you know what, we're embarking on a journey and this should be our timelines, and this should be our what you could call performance indicators. Because if you do not measure anything, you can't control it. And the roadmap would come with a blueprint. The blueprint was simple. We build, for example, this cup in peace times to a specification. Going forward now that we are in very dire times, what would be the specification for building cups? Okay, so if we were having buildings and terrorists were attacking us, how would we build buildings?
How do we fortify them?
How do we fortify them? I worked for a certain Israeli company that had a wonderfully massive elite estate in Nigeria. And everything I had read, I saw in their designs for buildings. They have some of the strongest buildings in Lagos, okay? Because they've already come out from that system and they are accustomed to it. So they just build it like that. It's now second to nature. So there had to be a blueprint for building. There had to be a blueprint for markets. There had to be a blueprint for religious gatherings. Everything had to conform and change with the scenario, especially then in the Northeast. If we wanted to have a religious gathering, these are the minimum requirements you meet or that gathering cannot hold. If you wanted to build a marketplace, a shopping mall, these are your minimum. It was an exciting, wonderful project, if you like, a project that was actually going to be based on requirements to be met within fixed time, fixed resources, with fixed expectations. So a decade later, I could look back retrospectively now and say, in retrospect, 10 years have actually brought about what you can call pulverized lessons. At a point in time, we even recycled problems. Problems that we had spoken about and tendered solutions to started coming back. If you observed, I don't show up on these media brands again to do any analysis, because when they call me, I usually tell them, go back to your archives. What you're asking me to come and talk about, we've already treated. So it's like coming there to repeat yourself. And I don't really take pleasure in saying the same thing over and over again. So most of the problems we see today are not new. They're even recycled. We see them go and come and go and come again, and we react almost about the same way we've been reacting without actually using those blueprints.
So no sign that we're learning any lessons.
They're supposed to, well, talking about lessons, I'd like to speak about a learning curve. And what is a learning curve? You know, when you start off something, initially you're going to make mistakes. So probably in 1 hour, you'll be able to make 3 or 4. By the time you hit a learning curve, you find out that in the same 1 hour, you could be making 6 or 7. Because you already know what to expect. You already know the blueprint. You already know the nuances involved. Okay, it's like maybe you were baking bread. At a point in time, you would have had everything set. And from the get-go, some things are already waiting. So the time it takes to prepare those things, you've already gained on. So from our lessons learned, there are still a lot of things we need to do to show the world that we have become masters of the art of fighting terrorism. But from the losses we incur and the stories we hear, it's not showing. Buni Gari just came up, and I was a bit crestfallen because it's my old constituency, okay? So anytime we hear fighting going on, we start thinking of colleagues. Of course, my colleagues are not in the tactical level of the army again. They are the strategic leadership team of the army. I'm a member of the 40th regular course, and my colleagues presently are major generals, a class beneath the present service chief, who is a member of 39th regular course. Yes, the chief of defense staff, 38. So we're all...
These are just 1-2 classes ahead of
Yes,
you.
we're all a generation. When I was in my first year in the academy, the Chief of Defense Staff was in his third year. The present Chief of Army Staff was in his second year. So it's like today's secondary school, you say SS3, 2, and 1. Exactly. So there are certain things that one would have expected not to hear of again. I actually do not feel good when I hear terrorists actually attack us. We're in defense and they take so many people out. By now, to attack any military location in defense should be suicidal. Okay, should be suicidal. If the blueprint for building a platoon, that's the list, the blueprint for putting a platoon down in defense was followed. Okay, that blueprint, terrorism, we're not the first to experience it. If you reached out to people who have gone through it, they will tell you exactly what a blueprint for sitting a platoon down. A platoon is, let me say, a platoon is 3 sections. A section is the smallest fighting unit. And depending on which speciality they have, at least 3 sections will make a platoon. And then 3 platoons make a company, then a battalion, a brigade. So for you to want to actually attack even a platoon, you should be suicidal. We have enough equipment and resources on ground that should warn the platoon commander of your arrival when you are at the very least a kilometer or 2 away. But it's not always the case. And then we see a situation where even when we attack, we tend to walk into ambushes. And walking into ambushes itself, presupposes certain things that are not sitting right. Okay? And those are the areas where I told you I preferred solutions that were looking like outlandish, but have now come to pass. You see, the desert, the desert is a place where the Boko Haramists have native ability. So they know where the sand will not carry heavy vehicles. And if you dare pursue them and they get you into that desert quagmire, you are done for. But then I will owe and remain grateful to the Nevada Desert Research Institute in Reno. And to this day, I still feel we should by now have a desert research institute somewhere in Borno State. And the reason is simple. Dust itself has what you call dust particulate structure. If you study a grain of dust and you log what you've been able to capture, you will go anywhere on the planet so long as you have records. You see, how do I explain it? The sand in Barbich is different from the sand in Ikorodu. So if I killed a terrorist and I took dust shavings off his boots, I'll go to his camp. Hello. If I took dust shavings off his tire tracks of the car and we do our forensics, he can't hide, not under the sun. Okay? Dust, again, has a very funny and interesting characteristics. There's a lot of dust in Borno State because of the soil structure. Fine sand is dust. Given the kind of dust you have there, your viscosity levels will differ. So what kind of engine oil you use for your vehicle will be determined by particulate matter. What is particulate matter? Particulate matter is the measurement of the texture of the grains of dust in different areas of the world. So how do you use that information? You now know exactly what kind of engine oil to use for your vehicles, or else they will clog up your weapons, or else they will clog up. And other than dust, there is also another advantage we have tended to overlook still on dust, It's called a dust storm. If you remember Operation Desert Storm.
Desert Storm. I was going to go through that.
Beautiful. That was from, I think, August 1990 to February 91.
Yes, I thought it was even 89. So that's
yes.
George W.
Yes,
Bush, the senior.
General Norman Schwarzkopf led his men, and they used information from desert institutes like the one in Reno, Nevada, and waited for a dust storm. A dust storm is such an immense wind-aided movement of fine sand. A dust storm can bury this building. If you see sand dunes in the desert. So when a dust storm shifts overnight, just like you have winter, and snow can fall so much and virtually bury any building that is not properly built. The same thing with dust. Dust can actually cover the entire building here, and you come tomorrow, this building would have disappeared. Then another time, the dust can shift.
Never had the experience. We've seen it portrayed in movies.
Good. Now, a dust storm, I can easily, from December to February, when the northeastern winds are upon Maiduguri, you call that Harmattan. I can easily point out to you those nights when the dust storms will set in against the terrorists.
Wow.
So we use the dust storm as a shield. Okay? Yes. The dust won't let them see. Visibility will be poor. They do not have the kind of sophistication to detect movements. So we can move in and we'll virtually pick them up. Okay. There are so many other options. There are also biological options. These biological options, if you think pathogens, for example, pathogen, you know what a pathogen is. Before you walk out of UNILAG biological sciences, there are PhDs and professors there that will give you a lot of lectures about pathogens. And you discover these terrorists, they like to ask for food. Sometimes they want to negotiate. They ask you to bring them 100 boxes of Indomie, 10 bags of rice, energy drink, 20 cartons, and what. With the right minds in biological sciences, say UNILAG, we could sit down and engineer. We will nano-engineer a pathogen. It won't necessarily kill them, but it could
demobilize them.
Demobilize you. And then the same people will give me an antidote. And
So it's a famous chimera and Bellerophon.
Exactly.
So you create the disease.
Yeah, beautiful.
You also create a cure.
The cure. So we see a lot of opportunity for growth, which we really haven't taken in the last 12 years because the entire thing has been politicized. It's been politicized. It's been weaponized. It's been commercialized. And what have you. The northeastern debacle, banditry, kidnapping, they have become cash cows. They've become cash cows. And the only people whom I see at the receiving end, the fall guys, if you like, are our gallant but battle-weary troops. Because until we take this politicization, weaponization, commercialization, and cashing out on the problem out of it, and replace it with the political will to end it, our soldiers will fight and fight. Our policemen, our DSS, you name them. There will be no end to these things.
We've literally run out of videos. They're everywhere of this young soldiers in battle lines in the heat of battle, getting stuck, sometimes even feeling that maybe they were set up, maybe the intelligence provided was wrong, or and we've seen all those videos. You talked about the Northeast, which has become a bit of a symbol for terrorism in Nigeria. The various terrorist groups and all of that, but we've also seen terrorism in the Niger Delta. The video some years ago of Niger Delta militants attacking naval positions, Navy ships, and all of that in daylight. Scary thing. You're watching it and you're like, is this a movie? But it's actually our sons and daughters being decimated. And the whole surprise of it makes you think of the whole Hawaii situation during the war when the Japanese attacked the Americans. You mentioned strategies that could be employed. Do you remember the video of the Israeli army intercepting a supply of communications equipment that was intended for
the
Hamas and the top brass, and then and then people, think blowing up in there,
blowing their heads off. I know where you're going. You see, fighting conventional warfare is different from fighting what you call asymmetric warfare. If you try conventionalities with Boko Haram or bandits,
you lose.
It will be akin to trying to trap tadpoles with a fishing net. They will swim right through it. Okay. And when they swim right through your fishing net, they take notes and get bolder. So when you want to fight this kind of war, as I told you, there is a blueprint. Each arm of your design for battle, each component of your design for battle. And this time, when I say design for battle, I'm not limiting it to the armed forces. There is a road safety component. There's a civil defense component. There is a Nigerian police force component. There is a community joint task force component, and there must be blueprints. This is your duty. This is what you will do in counter-terrorism mode. Okay? So here's the thing. Creativity, metacognition sets in. If you are used to this is how we have been doing it, you won't get there. If you are into, you don't tell us how to do our jobs, you won't get there. The most sophisticated weaponry you see today, fighter aircrafts, artillery guns, they were not built by soldiers. They were built by civilians like you. In laboratories, they did what they had to do, got civilians to invest in the companies that build this weaponry.
And of course, the academia.
Exactly, and the academia. And at the end of the day, they bring you a finished product and say, hey, Mr. General, this is the AK-47. This is the FNSLR. This is the GPMG and RPG and what have you. So what we are trying to say here is, when you have situations like this, you must be able to encourage people to come forward with ideas. Look at what is happening in the Northeast. Look at what is happening in the Southeast. Look at what is happening in the South-South. Even some patches, some swats of the North Central. What do they have that is common? They are all what you call rebellion against what I want to call irresponsible political conduct of leadership. Our politicians are notorious for opening chapters of crisis, and afterwards they bring in the uniform boys to come and mop it up. They tend to rest with this popular refrain that the worst democracy is better than the best military rule. Fine, that's true, but that doesn't mean you should do your worst in a democracy. Most of the crises, the conflicts you see happening today, call it what you like, they are just actually what you can call byproducts of some irresponsibly handled political situation. Some are even being exploited now politically. So the way forward, as I said, started 10 years ago. If we go back to the drawing board and begin to open these vistas of solutions that were proffered, you'll see the way through. By now, by now you should sit down and second guess a terrorist mastermind. If you've lived with someone for 12 years, you should know a lot about the person, his nuances, his behaviorals, and everything. But we need to put it together into a plan, and then you'll see things begin to sit properly.
What do you think happened to the blueprint you provided to leadership?
I will first start with my own state. I come from one of the most afflicted states, that is Niger State. And I was privileged to avail the outgone governor, not the present one, with those blueprints. Outside of my state, I was privileged to avail a late service chief, those blueprints of blessed memory. He's deceased now. I was privileged to give to someone. I don't know whether he got it, but that person is as close as your ear is to your head, to our sitting president. Right when the president was still at Bodilon, I availed that blueprint. But one thing I noticed is anytime I put that blueprint before people, they suddenly become incommunicado. I can't get through with calls, and even when I send messages, they are not responded to. I just hit what you call blank wall. I have also tried my utmost for Benue State and Plateau State through persons I know have the ears of the present governors. But then it just... So there is something somewhere that is seemingly deterring or discouraging us from going full swing and saying, you know what, we have to end this. And it could be done. Let me take you back. Once upon a time, a certain chief of army staff, General Buratai Tukur, decided to build or mooted super camps. A super camp is what it is, a camp, but it's super in the sense that some super camps could be 5 kilometers radius. That's how big a super camp can be. And inside the super camp, you could have any number of soldiers. You could have 2,000 soldiers. Tri-service, Army, Air Force, Navy. You will have an airstrip. You'll have everything. When I heard about the super camps again, I was excited. Because a super camp is located in a place that makes it equidistant to everywhere within that region. So once you take an aircraft up there from that super camp, you are there record time.
So response time
just
goes up.
When General Buratai brought about the super camp, I was so excited. I reached out to colleagues and I was inundated with solutions. So we were able to bring about a solution, which I actually took as far as television stations with short clips. You imagine your daughter or your son having a birthday. It's dirt cheap. So because I know anything you push forward, they say, we don't have money. There is we can't finance, it's too expensive, but we've paid almost so many billions now to bandits and rebels that could have bought the solutions. Now here it is. Imagine you had a daughter or a son who was celebrating his or her birthday. There is this balloon you bring and you fill it with helium.
Yeah.
And on its own, it goes up because helium is lighter than air.
True.
So here's the thing. Let me stretch your mind. Supposing we got a giant balloon, a balloon as big as this room, and we filled it with helium and tethered it with 2 kilometers of rope and gave it a payload of cameras that could take it up from the super camp, right there from the super camp, 2 kilometers. And it could give us 80 to 100 kilometers radius of visibility by day and 60 kilometers radius visibility at night, on time, real time. What do you think we do? We have an eye in the sky. In fact, I want the rebels to shoot my Teflon balloon because that will tell me where they are.
Where they are. The Americans shot down the Chinese balloon a couple years ago.
Good. So when you take that balloon up, it's like what you do in tourism. They call them air balloons, and you get an aerial view of the city, and but this one is stationary. So
But that is not rocket science.
it's not. Before I walk through Aba, I'll bring that balloon home or Niger. I mean, if people could fight the civil war unaided, it's a blessing, it's a plus. Yes, it's a plus. By now, our country should have 6 armies. Again, that's outlandish way back when I was thinking it, but now it makes sense. By now, Nigeria should have 6 armies. We should have a desert army. We should have what you call an amphibious army.
Yeah.
We should have a mountain army. We should have, the jungles of Umunede. Have you been there? You see Iroko trees in the jungles of Umunede that you need 11 people to hold hands to go around. I have a picture like that. Okay? We looked at the Bakassi Peninsula area. When Nigerian soldiers, when we fought in Bakassi, we lost some of our colleagues to pythons. Yes. We have rich, diverse vegetation. And is it geography here? We're blessed. Anyone you talk about, waterways, we have, you mention it. But we have not exploited those things that we require to govern to get a hold of our ungoverned spaces. And that's why you see all manner of people coming here to do what they like, from bandits to kidnappers to terrorists. Lately, I heard there are foreigners who are even digging precious resources, mineral resources everywhere they like. They just go and take, because we haven't really owned our nation's spaces.
You're a DNI guy. You are a former intelligence military man. If you were still in service now, you will be approaching full general.
I would be, no, it's not a given. I'll tell you why. The way the armed forces operates, only God knows where I could be. I could be dead. I could be retired. I could be a notch or two below my classmates. It's like a pyramid. And as you go higher, there are fewer slots.
Understand?
Exactly. So who gets it at a point becomes a matter of who the commander-in-chief wants. Exactly.
So there is politics in the military.
There is. There is. Because if tomorrow the commander-in-chief decides to say, for example, to the the chief of defense staff, General, thank you for your services. I think you should now take a bow. And the general is retired, of course. The commander-in-chief decides to pick a member of, say, Regular 41 as the new chief of defense staff. What happens is automatically anyone who is senior to 41 retires.
Has to be retired.
Yes.
It's a problem even in the police.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why you hear
we know
they
the
are
story.
very sensitive about tenure extension. When your tenure is extended, you are going to eat into our tenure, being your juniors.
And it's going to affect
And it's going to affect us, because at a point we are ready to become the next service chief, our tenure may have expired because we've already put in our 35 mandatory years.
It's like in secondary school, and you have the set, you have the prefects, and then they are supposed to graduate, and you're going to give them an extra year. Meanwhile,
beautiful. That's it. That's it.
Tell me. I know you weigh your words, and apart from that, you've been very fearless in being very open, constructive about the security challenges of Nigeria. And you're right. These things, you've said this thing in different fora over time. Do you did allude to the fact that, the blueprint is there, it's available, there's no response, there is radio silence often. What does your gut tell you? Is it deliberate?
Talking of gut instincts, I used to have some very wonderful instructors as a young military intelligence officer. And one of the first things one of them taught us was to survive out there as an intelligence officer or a secret agent, if you like. You had to first and foremost be intelligent. Next, we were told, is you must know when you are complaining to the problem. Okay? So, talking about gut instincts, at a point in time when I started talking and profiling and wasn't getting anywhere, that instinct came alive and was like, hey, you could be complaining to the problem. What followed later galvanized that instinct. You see, our profession is basically one of smoke and mirrors. If you've watched any of these Secret Service films, you understand what I mean by smoke and mirrors. It's intriguing. And at a point in time, I discovered if you are giving and suggesting, you're actually becoming known, but you're not getting any responses. Could you just probably be complaining to the problem? And of course, once an intelligence officer feels that way, there are what you call coping mechanisms, first aid survival drills you take up, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones to secure them. So it's not only the one. There was a very senior intelligence general, I think it was General Olawumi, Professor Olawumi. He came out and made some bold statements, and time and occurrences have vindicated him. There are others who were not even soldiers. I recall one Obadiah Mailafia. You recall him?
I remember the name.
Yes. He said some things which were seriously resisted, and he had to be taken in to do some debriefing and what have you. What is of blessed memory today, he's vindicated. I recall a very elder, a grandfather general, if you like, T.Y. Danjuma. He said certain things. For him, having held position of, was it Minister of Defense at a point? For him to have said such things is not something you just discount. You're still going to come out and say, but a lot of things that have been said, we are seeing undercurrents that are becoming plain. That which was hidden in broad daylight is now plain. It's not hiding anymore. And we don't need to, play the ostrich anymore. We need to come out and bell cats. Now, to bell cats, we need the political will, because no general in our armed forces today can outperform his principal, the commander-in-chief. None. Don't be misled now? Yes. So here we are. We've gotten to that point where we have to do something about everything national security. And in fairness to the politicians too, the generals must be able to match expenses with expectations. Okay? Fairly, we could say, General, this is a plate full of problems. Which ones can you solve? And he looks at the menu of problems and he picks 2 or 3. Fine, give me your requirements. Cost requirements, time requirements, blah, blah, blah. And maybe I give you a markup of 20% on your financial requirements. So don't go spend the money and come back with a story. No. Expectations and expenditure
should match
and balance.
Which brings me to accountability. For a long time, you've preached accountability.
Yes.
For instance, you have always preach that service chiefs should be held to certain deliverables.
Exactly.
And if they don't, you even had you were so specific, you had like what was that, a 2%?
Yes.
Like a bit of a buffer,
Yes. Yes. What I was trying to say is
it realistic going by the political climate?
You see, yes. First, we start with I told you people are cashing out on this thing. Let's start with our civilians, our principals, the politicians. You hear people saying things like security votes are not accounted for. No, I beg to disagree. If you can count that vote and know how much is there, you could account for it. So that's one side of it. For military top brass, you see, funding the armed forces and military equipment are very expensive. Are very expensive. But then we must be able to give a quantum of value for a quantum of funds, regardless, even if it is just 10 kobo. Okay, look at it this way. If I gave you 50 liters of fuel for your car and I told you to drive from here to the northeast, I know it won't take you there. But you don't sit here in Lekki or VI and tell me the fuel is done with. No, I expect you to have reached maybe Lokoja. And then say, you know what? We're approaching reserve in this town. Give me more. So I can mark the distance from here to where you are and say, no, good job. Have more. But you've not made any move. All you've expended is your tenure as a service chief. And you are going home and telling me everything is spent. So if you went and drew a financial statement, what are we going to see? What is your cash flow going to look like? Where is the money coming from? And where is it going into? Military business is expensive. I give that to my military, colleagues out there. It's very expensive. But then
it takes a bulk of the budget of some of the biggest nations in the world.
Yes, indeed. Those toys are those equipments, we call them toys. They are very expensive, both to maintain, and don't forget, we don't make them. So that's after you have purchased them, don't forget, you have to bring them in. That's extra cost. So what I'm trying to say here is, yes, because they are so expensive for us, we should be able to match our expenditures with expectations. And sometimes you could even give them a 20% markup. Maybe he wanted 100 naira, you could give him 120. Because we know that somewhere along the line there will be exigencies and, all manner of things come up. But at the end of the day, your expectations, at least we should be able to get some degree of, markups on our expectation list. That is it. Not to be recycling these challenges all the time. And a new service chief will come in and he gives you a new lease of life, a new mantra. And then, we keep cycling. No, we're not going to get anywhere that way. And the threats become bolder.
You are an open book, Captain Blade. And it shows in the way you lead your life. You've been very clear over the years with respect to how you think the country can deal with its security challenges. You are famous for the eye in the sky suggestion, which you talked about, which nobody has done anything about. You're famous for meeting madness with madness.
Yes, indeed.
As the
Yes.
Even in terms of the necessity for brute force in tackling.
Yes, indeed.
Some of these terrorists. You already said that you cannot approach them conventionally because you would be already on the back foot. After all these years, I want to resist the temptation to stick there because I don't have a military background. And I can see sense in what you're saying, even without the training and the formal. So let's come down to where we are. earlier on, you had mentioned what gut instincts told you that it's possible that you might be communicating with the problem.
Yeah.
The soldiers out there in the battlefields, they feel that way a lot of times. So I'm worried. How does it affect their morale going forward, and how does it affect the average Nigerian, knowing at this time where kidnapping, which I alluded to, is no longer a melee of the rich and powerful. It's now, people.
It's a lucrative
villagers get kidnapped these days.
You see, let's start with what you said earlier, okay? Having to do with meeting madness with madness. I was deliberate, and I still am about that. Albert Einstein said you don't solve a problem at the same level with that problem. You go a notch or two higher to solve it. What that means is, if you had a madman and you wanted to solve the problem of his insanity, you don't come to his level. You take your madness or your insanity a notch or two ahead of his. A certain American president, I can't remember who now, but as we go, I'll tell you who. He said something. He said, diplomacy is the art of speaking with a small voice, but carrying a big stick. So here's the thing. The average bandit, the average kidnapper, the average terrorist do not have respect for what we call intellectual rigor. They don't have respect for philosophizing. They don't have respect for what you call elder statesmanship or statescraftsmanship. What gives them rank and status, even within themselves, is brutality and fear.
Yeah.
If you want to be the head of a terrorist cell, you have to be bestial, not humane, and all those human resource, man management tips we know. No. So if you want them to respect you, you don't go to them calling them to the table to come and talk. You don't do that. You do that to the detriment of your troops. You don't call terrorists with their guns and then bring your military brass hats on the other side, unarmed. The terrorists come with their motorcycles armed to the teeth, and you sit them down and you call formation commanders of the police, the civil defense, the JTF, and the DSS or what have you, and they come and say you are coming for dialogue.
As sitting ducks.
They will lose that reckoning for your fighting troops. You dilute the magnanimity of your what? First 11, our soldiers. And they will sit down, whether in the creeks or in the desert, and say, listen, we talked to governor, so who the hell is that brigade commander? Yes, that's what you do, Mr. Excellency, when you bring these people out and say you are doing negotiations. They are not worthy. That affects the troops, that affects their morale. Where you see a rebel group now transforming to a military security company. When there are, if you wanted generals to bath with, that is to show you how many we have. If they were water, you bath with them. There are enough that we could sit and bring together and form a military security company that will do what that rebel who has lost body count of how many people he has killed, and soldiers inclusive, is now the one handling such contracts. He will never, ever have an iota of reckoning for your first 11, and that is your armed forces. Talk less of police. So when it comes to that, you are going to see a situation where the harder they fight your troops, the harder they will have to fight. Be they bandits, be they kidnappers, be they terrorists. Once you start doing that, you're going to rubbish the reckoning and the magnanimity of your armed forces.
What about the repentant ones? Boko Haram,
No, sir.
bandits?
No, sir. No, sir. I've been very clear about that. I don't see repentance. Okay, repentance is not just verbal. Here is the thing. Through the eyes of Captain Blade now, here's somebody who goes from village to village doing unspeakable things. Okay? Slaughtering people. You now say he's repentant. Having become repentant, you put him back into the system. How do you expect those in the villages and their children to receive him? That's one. Next, if he can get all of that for being a repentant terrorist, what about our soldiers whose widows and children are still languishing wherever they are? What are we doing for them that should also make them feel, you know what, our daddy or our mommy didn't die in vain? Then the third part of it is those that have been in IDP camps and probably had even children in IDP camps who don't know the way home. The IDP camps have been running for years now. There are some people who have had children and grown them there. They don't know the way home. These are the victims of the man who has retired, or is it repentant, you said? Yes. He's placed on a pension. Some of them are given life careers and what have you, both in the creeks and in the deserts. Some of them were even threatening to go back if they were not paid their monies. So what do you think you are doing? You are now legitimizing what I want to call rebellion. If you want to be reckoned with...
Then inspiring a new generation of rebels.
Exactly. If you want to be reckoned with, just put these politicians on their toes. Go anywhere and start damaging things. And then they will call for a truce and you go there and collect it. Oh, it shouldn't be encouraged.
Are they handy tools for politicians?
Oh, yes.
From what you've seen?
Oh, yes. That's why I said I suspect we are complaining to the problem. Let's go back in time. How did Boko Haram come about? Their founding father is known. Where is he today? Oh, yes. The leaders of rebel groups in the creeks and other places, how are they faring? Some of them are owning higher institutions. How could any authority allow people with such a past own institutions where people are molded, people who should be molded and found worthy in character and learning? And they say, you know what, our patron is this kind of person. What exactly are we doing? Where are we going? Today, if you are non-conformist, today, if you are non-entity, you tend to have a followership. And who are those who encourage non-entityship and followership for non-entities? It's our politicians. They put too much money in the hands of non-entities, riffraffs. I have no apologies whatsoever for this. We are diluting morality. You understand what I'm saying? At the expense of what? And look, Michael Jackson's monkey was a rich monkey. Bubbles, go and Google it. Any monkey can have money. That's why when you go to the ivory towers, our professors will tell you, you know what? You come with your ignorance, so we show you the light. Not everybody can be a PhD or a professor. But today, all those don't matter anymore because we've monetized everything. And that's why you see our young children are growing up not to attach any value to those things that make you a complete gentleman. Rather, they want to go for disruptive things. They told me that so many students did not pass exams. I said, we are even lucky they agreed to write the exams. Yes. We are lucky they agreed to write the exams. Because the way things are going, it's not looking as if those who write exams are serious. But it's looking as if those who are disruptive are the ones who are serious. Our politicians are seeing it and using it. So when you use it, it's like you've rubber stamped it, you've endorsed it. And then for the naive,
They become your influencers.
Exactly. They become your influencers, your role models. And you see a young man, they say, who's your role model? You say, MC Blade is my role model. Or he says, Shekau is my role model, because he sees all the power, and the attention such people command. It shouldn't be that. If we continue like that.
So it's structural.
Exactly. We need our politicians to become more exemplary. We need exemplars as leaders. Okay, you don't go doing things that will encourage people to be reckless.
Let me go back to your gut instincts.
Yes.
Do you think it will ever happen with our politicians?
It's
ever?
Coming. Oh, it's coming. I'll tell
of
you,
their own volition?
No, it's not going to be of their own volition. It's not going to be of their own volition, but it's going to come naturally. I'll tell you why. My late dad was someone I couldn't look at in the eyes. But what my own children did with him before he passed on, sometimes he used to leave my mouth hanging. And
We've all been there.
And he'll be laughing about it. He'll be so impressed. Things that if I tried with him, that day my mother's dowry will be refunded and me and my mom will go back to where. That's what is happening now. We who are children to these elder leaders are still of the olden days traditional home brought up thing about bowing to daddy. And you see these grandkids of our present, they're the ones that are tormenting them right now. Because a grandson doesn't fear his granddad. Yes, he will somersault on your bed. He will do a lot of things. He will take your most, my own grandfather had a very cherished suit, which he bought a long time ago. I took it to a tailor and in fact, I murdered the suit. And my granddad didn't do anything. He was just smiling. I'm sure if my dad did that. So that's what is happening now. When you see what's happening between what you call the youth, Gen Z and what have you, and our granddaddies, you know that there's nothing you can do to terrorize them. They don't see you as their parents. They see you as their grandparents.
So what you're suggesting is that the younger generations, the younger generation will compel
the younger generation
conformity.
Are tomorrow's people. On a time trajectory of 30 years, what do you think the average age of a politician today is? Our leaders, the prominent ones. If we place them on a time trajectory of 30 years, these ones will outrun them because they probably won't be here, the elders, 30 years from now. And if they think they are grooming their children from out there to come and hold sway, they had better have a rethink. Because then this generation of youth will knuckle to knuckle with them. It's not like the days of these ones didn't go to school, so your own children have the exclusivity of a good education. No. This device has brought education. Not necessarily literary education, but exposure to every person, regardless your creed, your tribe, your religion. Once you have this device, you see and learn a lot about so many things. So those children they think are outside, and they are preparing them to come and take over from them. It's not going to happen.
I don't think Nigeria has been this polarized since maybe after the Civil War. There's polarization going on now. If you follow social media and you listen to what the young people are saying, there is this silent war. Much of it, it's not so silent anymore. Much of it stemming from the politics of the country. Yoruba versus Igbo, Hausa versus this and all of that. Do you fear that we might be stumbling into some sort of a civil war?
There wouldn't be any such thing. I have no such fears, and I'll tell you why. If you look at our traditional institutions, all these Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, all this, how do you call it, ethnicity and ethnicity, where is the place of the traditional ruler today in government? Our politicians have rubbished that institution. So when I see people sitting down to say Abani dan arewa ne or this one is more duanimi or somebody will tell you that all those ones. Where are what have you? The politicians have actually, in fact, I was learning that from next year the politicians have decided traditional rulers will play constitutional role. I had it on the news somewhere, I can't remember where. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the world we are heading into is not a world for ethnic bigotry and all this ethnic jingoism. It's not going to put food on the table for you. It's not going to make life any easier for you. Fine, you have finished. Let's assume we all went our way. What do you think we're going to become? We're going to become smaller microcosms of the whole that was problematic. If my village decided to become a country today, it is then you will now see that, okay, let me use a typical example for you that you can relate with. We have two Abrahamic faiths in Nigeria. There is interreligious friction. But let's leave that. Let's talk about within the religions themselves. Are they one? Intra-religiously, there is friction. If you come to Islam, there are like 80 different sects. If you go to Christianity, it's not any different. It's when they have problems with each other across the divides that they come together. Once they have finished that problem inter-religion, they go back to their religions and then to your tent, so Israel. Now, the same thing happens regionally. Among the Yorubas today, you break away, then you will know that there are Yorubas and there are second-class Yorubas. The same thing with the North. You break away and you will see the same thing. So it's not going to solve anything. What I think we should start considering, I'm not a political scientist, I'm not a politician in Nigeria, but we need to start looking at the 36 states of our Nigeria as a confederacy. You see, if we decide to do that, you cannot be a minority in your local government. Yes. We have states today where they are still feuding. They are not one. Some states are saying, split us. We want to go this way or that way. Now, if we confederate, for example, all the local governments become entities in their states. Something like what the United States is doing. So how can you be minority in your local government? You can't. But today, some people just want to sit in Abuja, do nothing, and have the fattest paychecks, while those that are out there doing all the work are not getting anything. It will not go well. It won't. It won't. It's just a recipe for trouble and more trouble.
This is 2025, and another election cycle beckons. By this time next year, the political machinery will be revving at full speed ahead. Your experience so far, what do you see? Get a crystal ball as we approach 2027.
Where we are going from where we are coming is we are heading into confusion, into turbulence. If you look at it, the politicians, they don't know what they want, and they are doing it with our resources and at our expense. It is here in this part of the world, you see someone who is in one party in the morning, by lunchtime he's gone back to the other party, and by dinner he's back there. These people are just in it for the meal ticket. No vision, no direction. Wherever the cookie jar resides is where they go. So Nigerians, I hope, are learning and taking notes. The elections as they are, for me, I don't follow them because, to be candid and sincere with you, I'm a security man. And Nigerian politics is comedy, right? Not from this time, right from way back. Okay. Yes. Right from way back, And when you look at the kind of people we throw up as politicians, I won't say bring forward, we throw them up. You begin to understand why Nigerians are maltreated abroad. Yes, we have bad Nigerians who go there and misbehave, yes. But you see, when you see a child, there is no way you can divorce a child's graces from his father's reputation. So when you show up, I once had the privilege of being in one of the Middle Eastern, countries. And while we were trying to check in, Nigerians were, we are very animated people. Even where there is no need to rush, we tend to rush. And then somebody said in French, and unfortunately, not knowing I understand French, he said, they are Nigerians. They behave like horses because their leaders are not any better. And I just looked at the person and I responded in my mind because what I said was unprintable. And I just kept quiet. But it's true. Our leaders are our first 11. The things they do or do not do define our graces or our disgraces outside. Let me repeat it again. Our leaders, they are our first 11. The things they do or do not do define our graces or disgraces out there. So when you get to some countries and they say, to un Nigérien, oui, this way, please. Aha. That's all. You will see lowly people. When I say lowly people, people that ordinarily should not even condescend to speak rudely to you because they are what you call rank and file in their services there. They want to malhandle you because you have no graces. Your first 11 whom they believe you elected. If you can elect this kind of people, then that means you are not somebody we should treat kindly. That's what we are suffering from. So our leaders have to understand it. What they do here, how they do it, eventually ties into the graces or the disgraces we enjoy or suffer respectively out there. The same thing with our troops. The reckoning our soldiers get, even among their peers internationally, is a function of our victories or defeats here. If you have not pocketed your threats at home, why should I invite you to come and contribute troops to fight another elsewhere? And even if we invite you, why should a general or an officer from country B want to respect you when you haven't earned it? When he has had to contend with bigger threats in his country than yours, and he did so successfully, because you are not of the same rank, he's meant to now answer to you. These things happen. These things count, whether anyone likes it or not. Okay, so we have a place as giants of Africa, but the last 1 decade, I would say that position is shifty. That position is shifty. I was here, when you were here some few years ago, when someone had the effrontery to carry a bulldozer to our ambassador's residence in Ghana and pull it down. Where do you think that audacity came from? It's from a dilution of the magnitude and reckoning we enjoy. And what causes those kind of things is irresponsible social and political conduct by our people, our leaders. That's just where it is. If we want to be open and bell cats. But if we want to be politically correct, we can continue to call our leaders what they are not and praise them for achieving what they haven't.
So call a spade an agricultural implement.
Exactly. That is it.
All right. Let's pick it back a bit to kidnappings, commercial kidnappings. There's this video. I don't know if I would let my producer show. There's a video. Yes, and we see this video here, there, and everywhere. If that could just play this one, that's one of those many kidnapping things, videos here. It's
I think that guy was released.
After going through, and you can see money being stacked up at a time when These days, some of us don't even see this amount of cash because every day the society is really cashless.
Yes,
and you cannot, kidnappers are not going to give you bank accounts because they can track them. You have to look for the money to go and pay them. And it's become, and when you look at this setting, these are pretty rural areas, people being kidnapped. Is it that intelligently there is little the country can do to nip this in the bud?
Okay, let me put it to you this way. Kidnapping is about the only business I know where the ROI, if there is any investment at all, is absolute.
Whoa.
Yes, the return on investment for kidnapping is absolute, because I can't even begin to say it's 100%, because you have to have put something in before you understand. So let's just say it's absolute. And you see, the reason why you see this is because the kidnappers just get a tap on the wrist. Don't forget I told you that people who go into this kind of business are not people you appeal to. They are not people you hold seminars and brainstorm about what to do to. When you are doing that, they see you as weaklings. They see you as weaklings. But if they know that you can strike the fear of the devil into them, what I mean by that is you don't fight them with God, you fight them with the devil. Yes. If you can come into our villages and kidnap people, and because they couldn't raise money, you kill them, you've lost your own right to live. Why should I want to jail you for life and feed you on taxpayers' money?
But so, human rights.
What human rights? Where did the human rights of the people he murdered go? You get where I'm coming from? The people he murdered, they also had human rights. The day you violate one's human right, in my own mind, in such extreme cases,
you've lost your right to live.
Yeah, you've lost your own human rights too. Even the Bible says it, an eye for an eye. They say is it the Abrahamic laws you call it?
Mosaic,
sorry. They say Mosaic. No, but look, these are not people you meet with all those refined diplomatic and humanistic solutions. Those ones are for human beings. Okay? Now let me tell you one thing about kidnapping, which I have always preached to my loved ones. Everybody has a kidnap value, but your kidnap value is directly proportional to your lifestyle. We take a lot for granted. Let me tell you, a kidnapper needs not be the person who caught you and took you to the bush. A kidnapper could be that staff whom you didn't pay his salary, and you threw a shindig for your mom when she turned 70. He'll just call his bros in the bush and say, you know what? I want 40% of whatever we take. They say, no problem. And because you are a driver in that house, or a staff, or a gardener, you know the target's itinerary. You furnish them that itinerary, and there it goes. I have a foreigner. He's a friend in Nigeria, an Asian. He owns the property he lives in. But you know what? He's a tenant there. He's low profile. He's always wearing shorts and a t-shirt, working at his construction site. If he told you he was this much, you say no. But the average Nigerian elite, in quotes, wants to make an impact, and you end up attracting
an impression.
I don't see how oppressive lifestyles impacts what is in your bank account, your bottom line. But if you have to live such elaborate, flamboyant lifestyle, then do commensurate to have elaborate, flamboyant security around you. And make sure that your extended family members too do. It's too expensive. So it's better you are low profile. The reason is, as kidnappers, let me tell you, at my consults, we looked at kidnapping. When they want to get into your wallet, they don't come after you because they know there is a protective ring around you. So they will go after your grandmom or your sister-in-law or people that are within your extended family, not within your nuclear family. And they know that if we pick this one up, there will be pressure from your kinsmen for you to assist. So you are going to cough it up. So we always tell people that low profile living is it these days. I go places and the nature of my going there, people keep staring and they cannot believe, could this be him? But no, it can't be him. He shouldn't be. Yes, because I don't do elaborate things anymore. I sit somewhere and I try to do it as quietly as possible, do what I want to do and leave because I don't have that kind of money. Okay? And then my loved ones too, they know me very well. If you decide to go and show yourself as Captain Blaze XYZ, if they take you, safe journey. I don't have it. So I've taught them how to move like shadows. That's our specialty as intelligence officers. And I've taught them how to know if they are being followed and flush that tail, or if they can't, just call me. I've told them the immediate drills you take. If somebody is chasing you, you just drive into a filling station and just press the horn.
So in this context, social media will be a security threat.
Yes, I've seen people who will go and take photographs in places that tell the wrong story just because they want to. Is it hype? They call it, or flex now. I've seen people who stand right beside their very expensive vehicles and take selfies with the registration number. Any intelligent person will follow you home. I've seen people even stand beside the numbering of their street and the house address right outside the gate. And they want to show you, I just finished building my new house. We are warming the house. And you've also told me where the house is. So a lot of things. That's why I said you have to be low profile. These things don't add a dime to your bank account. But trust me, when they come for you, these things you've done will empty your bank account. So that's just it.
You talked about the inaction of slap on the wrist that people get.
Yes.
And how it fuels further bad behavior. Governors are reputed for not wanting to sign death warrants for people on death row. What's your take on that? How everybody, kidnappers, some people feel that so many criminals are potentially being left off the hook, and what is the impact of this on the psyche of these people with criminal tendencies themselves?
You see, the first thing and the most unfortunate thing you can do to any human being is to leave him on death row. If you go to our correctional facilities, there are many people there who have been condemned. And every day they live is harrowing. If somebody has done something that is so bad and he's gone through appeal, both
through the entire legal process is exhausted
to the Supreme Court, and the learned judges there still found him wanting, let him go, and may the Lord have mercy on his soul. That becomes a deterrent for those who do it. Okay? Everybody on death row now wants amnesty. Let me tell you something about being on death row. If you ask them at the correctional facilities, they will tell you. The men who are on death row, they're the most dangerous class of prisoners you have there. If you don't know how to go, I've spoken to a warder, a prison warder. They are not people you mess around with, because he knows he's already exhausted all day. So anything he does is still the same death. He could kill anyone right there in an argument. So I don't see any reason why any governor will come to office and tell me I don't want to be the one to do what. You think being a governor is just to come and wear starched robes and answer your excellency? Being a father is not easy. It's not easy, because when you are a father, you have to contend with a lot of things within the family. The good, the bad, the ugly, and all that's in between. So this idea of leaving people on death row for 20 years, 17 years, 18 years, I don't find it.
They say they don't want blood on their hands.
What blood on their hands? What blood is worse than gasoline monies that were meant to build hospitals so our babies will survive?
On that bombshell note, let me. I just wanted to close it here, but let me ask you this question.
Yes.
We see what's going on in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. Military leaders, strongmen, are defying the oligarchs and the West, and from some reports, to their people's advantage, they're being celebrated at home. Some say the military is making a comeback. Do you sense or fear or otherwise that the military could come back to power in Nigeria?
I'm going to answer this question the same way I answered it when I don't want to market anybody, but he's one of you, so I won't be marketing him in his own office. Okay, so I was with Uncle Jimmy on his program,
JD,
and he mentioned something. He asked me a question that was similar to that. And in answering the question, I had an advice for our politicians. Okay. You see, the fact that military regimes are outdated and outmoded should not be your excuse to provoke the unexpected. Don't ever assume that because the worst democracy is better than the best military rule, then that means as politicians you will do your worst and the military won't come back. You are provoking the unexpected. I will promise you that the way we are trained, the last soldier will die before this country passes away. And if anybody thinks he will threaten the collective sovereignty of this country, whether internally or externally, then you will see the real color of those sons and daughters of Nigeria I call the armed forces. It's something that is put in us right from the cooking pot in the nursery where we are trained. So, in as much as I don't see my colleagues sitting down to plot a coup, let that not be an excuse to carry on in a way that will fragment this country. Because when we were training, we shed sweat, we shed blood and tears just to be fit to hold some 200 million people together and defend them. And no civilian is going to rubbish that. Parting words.
Food for thought.
Yes, indeed.
I want to part, but I'm tempted to ask this one last. There's this video, if my producer would cook it up, of Western nations destabilizing African nations. This CIA whistleblower, John Stockwell. I don't know if you've seen.
Functioning constitutional democracies in over 20 countries. We manipulated elections in dozens of countries. We created standing armies and directed them to
This
fight.
is a CIA whistleblower.
Organized ethnic minorities to encourage them to revolt. The first thing we did in Nicaragua was to go to the Mosquito Indians, who had never gotten along with the other people in Nicaragua very well, and give them more money than they had seen in the entirety of history, and arms and training and rationales and sanctuaries in Honduras, and sent them into Nicaragua to attack kill, fight, rape, burn, pillage. And this
it goes on and on. Emmanuel Henry, if you turn it down a little bit, it goes on and on. It's scary. Congo, Nicaragua, these places, many countries. You are a military intelligence person. Is this, I mean, do you put any credit to that? And if that is the case, is there anything that the countries can do? Is there anything that Nigeria can do?
One of the things you are seeing, first of all, what he's saying has never been a lie. Africa is a resource basket. Okay? There are countries that claim they are great this and great that and don't produce anything. They just exploit the chaos they create here to sell weapons. Yes, if I produce daggers, and that's basically what I know how to produce, what do you think I'll be doing? I'll be causing wars now so that you can come and buy.
If you see two brothers fighting, you just sell them.
Just go there.
Sell them.
Exactly.
Machetes.
So here's the thing. Back to the question before this one concerning coups. Yes, those officers you see in Burkina Faso, Niger, and what have you, they may not be democratically elected, but they are popular. You're looking at popular government, not necessarily democratic government. Not all democracies are popular.
So if the governance is popular, why does it have to have carry a mantra of democracy if the people are happy with that government?
That's what we're saying, that there is popular rule and there's democratic rule. Not all democracies are popular, and not all dictatorships are unpopular. Let's understand that. Now, coming to this CIA business, let me assure you, in this kind of business, I told you it's a business, it's a game of smoke and mirrors. What you are seeing here is a foreign intelligence service officer, because he's from another country. Yeah. Every country has their own fair share of foreign intelligence service officers, and we are never friends. It's a game of smokes and mirrors. It's also a game of cloaks and daggers. We could do each other favors, and after that, we could also do each other these favors. It's all, every country has its own. We have our own, the NIA, you have the CIA, you have the Mossad, you have there are many all over the world. So what you hear him saying are the things they have done to sustain their home governments. There are things that are also being done here to sustain our own home governments. They are classified, yes, and over the years, they are declassified. So what is happening today? Recently, we caught some British Army officer who was trying to, is it not ferry ammunition, arms ammunition, and the British embassy came out and disowned him. Of course, they won't own him. He is what we call an illegal resident. We have legal and illegal residents in this kind of business. The legal residents are in the embassies. They are diplomatic community staff. If you catch them doing anything wrong, you can only call for their withdrawal, but you can't touch them. The illegal residents is people like this who go for deep infiltration missions.
Defense contractors.
If they enter, they are inserted. If they are caught, they are on their own. If they make it back home, they are heroes. So this one probably is talking about what they did way back, which is probably declassified now. But as you can see, he's elderly now, and he's in his twilight years, and he probably wants to meet God.
Conscience has taken over.
So
when we talked earlier on about repentant ones, so it's between you and your God, right? The state you do it.
Yes, it's between you and your God. But let me assure you that when you repent for God, the one you did here, you will pay for it now. Then go there and go and repent. You don't come and exterminate one whole village and run into a church or a mosque and say you have repented. Of course, we know you have repented. God will forgive you, but you have to meet him to be forgiven.
Direct in person.
That is it. And how do you meet God? You know, we have to facilitate.
Yeah, that assumes that when your life ends here, you end up anywhere else.
Yes.
Talking about this, the latest reports just reaching us suggest that Russia is moving some of their special forces into Burkina Faso on invitation of the government there, at a time when France and some other friends are meeting in Côte d'Ivoire to, as some people say, to strategize on how to take out the leader there. What does your intelligence tell you with this kind of thing? Again, are we going to see another round of bloodbath?
No, it's simply going to shift the balance of power and influence. And I don't see it going...
You feel the military president will get some protection now with Russia stepping in?
Basically, once the Russians make a presence felt and in support of Traore, it's going to create a bit of confidence building for Traore. He's not going. You see, the French is already France is already in a very bad place where these three countries are concerned, and it all started somewhere after, I don't know, but at my consults we monitor this thing. It all started somewhere after Arikana Chihombori Kwao. You remember that lady? After she made certain very, very scathing revelations about what they've been suffering. Now, let me tell you the psychological and the behavioral impact of that. When a mother wails, her son's heads will catch fire. For the courage that woman exhibited to mention all the things Francophone African countries are suffering, that kind of blew the embers of that wind you saw blow across Francophone African countries of Niger, of Burkina Faso, and Mali. And there you saw the Assimi Goatas, the Traores, and the, what do you call the Nigerian man now, Chiani. You saw them come up. If our mothers can say this courageously, then we, their sons, are not cowards. Moreover, what they said was true. So you see people that feel entitled about things that don't belong to them. And the Russians are now coming to say, you know what? We've never had a colony per se. The Asians or the Chinese too are saying that. These ones, they always know how to take colonies and they take things that don't belong to them and impoverish people. We have never had colonies, but we build people. It's up to you now. And if they are inviting the Russians, then you know that it's not going to be any easier for France. How they tend to manage it, the Francophone countries, is left to be seen. But I will advise they tread with wisdom. The same wisdom the British countries applied when colonialism was when colonialism was going out of fashion. What did they do? They set up a Commonwealth. Britain can be very smart sometimes, you know. The same thing when the church was going out of fashion, they set up what? A government, a parliament, and then made the Queen the head of the Church of England. And then, you know, time was when the church was government, and government was the church in Europe.
True.
That's why all the royalties in Europe are related, from the Habsburgs to the all the royalty in Europe are related.
Germany, Britain,
they married,
the Williams,
exactly. So when it was becoming outmoded,
even Russia,
even Russia, the Tsar and the Tsarina period, at a point they were all intermarrying. But when it started becoming outmoded to have religion as government, the English decided to form the parliament and then made the Queen, now is the king, the head of parliament and the head of the church. Ceremonially, though, as so those are the matured way, not these boots and no, it won't work. It won't work because
So some would look at it and say, well, we've seen that script play before in Syria, yet Assad is no longer at the helm of affairs.
yeah, you see, one thing is an idea or a movement, once it is born, can never again be eroded. You may take the central figure out, but that idea, that movement won't die. It's just a matter of time. And you see, there are some battles that at this point in time in Africa have their days numbered. There are some things like all this colonialism, colonial masters, we throw it overboard. It's not going to. I've been a student in class with white students and I beat them in exams. So maybe my grandfather and my dad and our elder politicians who grew up when colonialism was still there, we didn't grow up under any colonial thing. I was born way after Nigeria got independence. So I don't see any white man as any lord.
So the Axis lords right now are in disarray.
Yes.
The battle lines are forming.
Yes.
We know Russia and China, Iran, North Korea, that's an axis.
Exactly.
And they seem surprisingly to be more in tandem with one another than the Western Axis lords.
Yes,
the French, the Americans, NATO, everything is...
one thing I can tell you about...
I just wanted to ask you
Yes.
where you see all of this going.
Where I see all of this going is eventually there's going to be a face-off.
It's inevitable now, isn't it?
Yes, it's inevitable. And from my own side of the divide...
World War III?
Oh, come on. When they fight, they call it World War. When we fight, they call it skirmishes. All this World War doesn't scare me.
Do you feel the fight has already started, or the first salvos have already been shot?
It's always been like that. The only thing is right now it's a bit more aggravated or pronounced. Let me tell you something. All the nukes and all the bombs and all the intercontinental ballistic multi-re-entry vehicles, I wonder, are you going to sit on Mars and fire them? Are you going to sit on Mars and fire them? You say you have missiles that will end the world and you will be where? You will be on the sun or in Pluto. It's for people who want to be scared. These are all, it's like a game of chess that never checkmates. They'll keep juxtaposing, positioning, whatever. Those that will be victims. Those that will be cannon fodder. The World War, let's talk about the Second World War. No, be my forefathers fight them. They came here and drafted people as at 2000, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. There were still people alive who fought those wars and were not paid their emoluments and gratuities now.
Whether it's in Burma or
a beautiful Burma, Rangoon, or where do you call the other place? They were all there, Normandy and what have you. Blacks went there to fight. So when they are talking about their wars, I just look at them. Who is going to fight that war for you?
But is the war inevitable now?
There is going to be what they call an inevitability of war. But what I want to tell you is that these people are profit-driven. And they've staked so much that, honestly speaking, they won't trade it off because of a world war. They want to agree. They want a new world order. And they're ready to create problems that will necessitate the emergence of that new order so that they can continue in their drive for capitalist-driven profits. But if you end the entire world, then where will the profits and all the payoffs come from?
Elon Musk is building Starship and is going to Mars.
And you want all of that to end with a world war. It's not adding up.
What's your thought on the Trump phenomenon?
Donald Trump. There was this book I used to read. Those days when we were in school, I've forgotten the author, but the title, I think, is Cyprenequency. The title is 1 Week, One Trouble. Either it's Cyprenequency or it's
I know the book. I don't know why it eludes me now.
Yes.
There's probably a Quincy who wrote it. Either a Quincy, I think is the most
there's this
likely.
Guy. There's this guy, but
Chino Achebe?
No. His name is in my head. I'll mention it as we go because I went to school with his son.
Okay.
So anytime I see tuna drop, I remember 1 week, one drop. with all due respect. With all due respect, because I don't know whether he came into government to build.
He's a disruptor, isn't it?
Yes. There's this refrain, if you watch skits on social media, they say, I don't like peace. I want trouble.
Always. You think it's deliberate?
I really can't place that man. He's very unpredictable. He's very disruptive. He's not, I don't want to use the word unrefined, but the finesse, the protocols that greet and define people of his status and his office, the man doesn't seem to give two hoots about them. Yes, but...
Do you think where Nigeria is going, the country is going to produce its own Trump someday?
From the way I'm seeing my younger ones, or even, I wouldn't like to call them my children, but I'll call them Nigerian youth. We are actually unwittingly or wittingly, I don't know which one to say, producing that generation of people, leaders, tomorrow's people, if you like, who will become the Moses that will not know Pharaoh. Yes.
What a clever tweak or twist of the whole thing. I thought it was the Pharaoh that didn't know Moses. Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph. Or this Moses.
Is it Joseph?
Yes. The Pharaoh. The Pharaoh that does not know Moses. Know Joseph.
You know what I'm trying to say.
I get you.
You see, our present crop of leaders are teaching these young ones all the wrong things they shouldn't do. And trust me, they are taking note. That's the only thing I can say they are going to be leaving that is positive legacy. They are teaching these young ones all the things that, and you know definitely that our president, with all due respect, is not friends with our youth. The NSAS thing started it. I recall that day I had a meeting with Abubakar Atiku in Abuja. And after I met with him, we had a conversation. I took a flight back. 20th of October. No, it's 10th of October, 2020. I took a flight back and I met a blockade at the Lekki toll gate, so I couldn't get home. The hotel that is just there, you know, there is Intercontinental there.
Oriental
there. Intercontinental is in VI. There's Oriental there. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go forward. And I was worried about my car. So what I did was that I had to get someone among them, just tell him, you know what, they're going to help me talk to your friends. Let them give me small room like that. I maneuvered my car and I had to check into that hotel. I watched everything that happened that day from that window. You see, these young ones, permit me to say young ones, they don't like Mr. President. And he has to do something seriously about it. Regardless whatever his advisors or handlers are telling him, he is not popular with our youth. Neither was his predecessor. That's it. When it was happening, the IG, incidentally, I learned he wants to run for senator now. There is this IG, is it not, his name always skips me. But he has a very striking semblance to a very popular musician when I was young. You know Snoop?
Snoop Dogg.
Yes, they look alike. Check it out. I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, I've forgotten
Yes,
too.
yes.
But the Inspector General
Yes, he
of
was the
Police,
IG,
you know,
yes.
during
He's a very quiet man.
during Buhari's time.
Yes, he's a very quiet, reserved man. And I recalled, I tried to reach out and say, see, there was this boy who was very popular then. He was trending. I'm trying to remember his name. I think he won Big Brother Niger then also. I said, get that one. Let him be the face of the Nigerian police. Then reach out to the youth. They can relate with him. Let them sit down and talk. I think Davido and some others did the 5 for 5 something. And but it wasn't properly managed. Now, what we're able to get to there is simple. The youth have stopped getting physical. They've gone what? Cyber. If you think because they are not protesting physically on the streets and it's all quiet, there is peace, you are mistaken. They are communicating here and educating each other. And as I told you earlier, on a trajectory of 30 years, they will outrun Mr. President. Because even if he's going to be here in 30 years' time, he's probably going to be in his what? The twilight years, just resting, playing with his great-grandchildren. But they will make it their mission to dismantle everything he's done. And they will grow into their 50s too and become presidents tomorrow. And what they're going to do is to make sure they undo everything that you've done that doesn't identify with their own what? Aspirations. Yes. When the national anthem was being reversed, I had my own opinions. If I was given opportunity then, I would have said, Mr. President, I know you want a new national anthem, but because we have a youth bulge, you know, when I say a youth bulge, there are more youths in this country than there's any other generation.
True.
So since we have
It's a very young nation.
Yeah, it's a very young nation. So since we have a youth bulge, why don't you bring one musician, one Davido, one Temi, one Burna Boy, just bring them together. Tell them, look at this thing. Give me a national anthem. They will bring out something that once it starts singing, all the youth will be vibrating with what? National gravitas. Music can inspire people to fight wars, and music can make people weep. That's why we have dirges. So when you bring a national anthem that your youth identify with, you're going to see some 50 years of motivation. Anywhere they hear it, they will throw religion down, they will throw ethnicity down, they will throw regionalism, they will stand as one. But we lost it. The national anthem to the average 25-year-old ear is archaic, because I learned it when I was in nursery 3. Nigeria, we hail thee. Then somewhere in my primary school, it became Arise, O Compatriots. Then we've now gone back to Nigeria, we hail thee again. And those who don't want to tell Mr. President the truth have been saying, no, it's the best thing to happen. It's the best thing to happen through whose eyes? On a trajectory of 30 years. Will he be here? I'm not wishing him death. But even if he is here, he should be in his twilight home resting. Those that are going to use it, if I were to design a vehicle, for example, that's going to last 30 years, I won't go to Oga Atiku or Buhari to design it now. I'm going to bring in the young ones, the Davidos, the Temis, and I say, please put a vehicle down for us. And it will be useful for the next 30, 40 years, because they will use it and they will recommend it for their children. Well, you go and bring Lord Lugar's official car and say we should ride it for the next. Nobody is going to connect with it. So those are the places we found ourselves, which can be corrected. Still, up till now, it can be corrected. We need not continue to be, goat-headed and stubborn, especially when we should be elders and sages. That's just my take.
And thank you for it.
You're welcome.
It's such a fine pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Captain Blade Umar Babangida
Aliyu.
Aliyu.
Yes.
Great guy.
Thank
Well done. We look forward to better times if they will come.
Same here.
And if they don't, you already said they're teaching people to
Exactly.
their best survival instincts, how you can both survive and thrive,
Exactly.
and all that. Keep up the good work,
Thank you very
Captain.
much.
Thank you, Baba.
Same here.
Yeah.